That's cute. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CCA Living Room. We have a very special presentation tonight. We have the great Norm Cohn and Zach Koenig with us. Zach will be tuning in just a sec in an event that is presented in conjunction by the CCA in conjunction with SWIA in honor of the Santa Fe Indian Market. And I'm actually going to do something here and give you the opportunity to donate to Indian Market. There's a link there. Support all that they're doing. They really did an incredible job of transferring their event, which seems like it had to be physical, into something that's beautiful and virtual. So we're really pleased to be a part of their first emergency virtual program. Kimberly Pioni, I think, will be joining us in a bit, and she'll be able to say hello as well. We're also co-presented tonight by the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival, another great partner. We're going to give an opportunity to donate to them later too. They actually suggested we look into this program, and it's a brilliant choice. Thanks to Jacques and Lizette. I think you guys are in the audience, and for all that you do. And I'm here with Norm Cohn with the hopes that Zach will be joining us soon. I hope most of you got a chance to watch the film in the last few days. And I just want to start by praising the entire giant enterprise of Isuma TV that Norm and Zach created in the mid-1980s. You're officially celebrating your 30th anniversary, but I guess it's been more like 35 years of doing this work.
We met in 1985 and started working together with Paul Apak and Policy Klitic. And we incorporated in 1990, so technically we have an official production company partnership for 30 years, but it's 35 years that we've been working together.
Right. Well, and I'm just going to tell people a little bit about what you've done over those 35 years and give a little context. They say that, it's a cliche, but it's true. History is written by the victors. And I don't think there's anywhere that's more true than in the world of the history of cinema, where stories have really been told by a very select few number of people. Oh, Kimberly's here. Good, Kim. We'll have you say hello in just a second. And there's been very few instances in cinema history of actual resistance through the camera. And Isuma TV and all of the associated projects have offered an incredibly vibrant, visionary, engaged form of storytelling and resistance and cultural preservation. The company started a TV network. A little background on this is that cable TV wanted to come into that region of Canada through the 70s, and the people continued to reject it. It wasn't until the 80s when they negotiated an agreement to have a broadcasting network that was all in Inuit language that they agreed to allow cable TV to come in. And that's part of the story of Isuma TV. Norm, you can correct me on any errors that I make. In other words, the goal was to have not only stories flooding from the West and from the South, in this case, but also to have stories that were about the people in the villages, told by the people in the villages in those native languages. And that is a very worthy endeavor. But what Isuma and Zach and Norm have done over the course of 35 years is do that and create just incredible art. And it's art that I think one could say is its own genre in the same way that film noir is its own genre, or the French New Wave is. The work that has been done, and none of it by Isuma and the filmmakers that Norm and Zach have worked with, it really represents an entire movement in storytelling. So I want to just congratulate you on all that work. And we'll talk about the film in a second, but we're going to take a little break and say hello to Kimberly too, so she can give a welcome from SWAIA.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite. Was watching the show before I actually joined and was completely shocked. I didn't expect that film. And so it definitely was a scenario where it was informative and impactful on me personally. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us for this question and answering and just having this opportunity to share. And also, thank you for being a part of Virtual Indian Market. This has definitely been a uncharted territory for SWAIA. And so as we've moved through this time, I just appreciate everybody for their patience in reference to this, because I know that it's completely on the heels of technology, and sometimes that technology is our friend and sometimes that technology is not. So thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity for being here. So welcome everybody, and please enjoy this question and answering that we're about to embark upon. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Kimberly. It's really an honor to be a part of your first market. So, and congratulations on all of the work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Norm, we are going to ask a few questions now about One Day in the Life, starting with the relationship of the film to the actual Noah, which is just, you know, now that I learned after I watched the film, I did all of the research. I learned a lot more, but it deepens the story so much to learn a little bit about who he was. Can you tell us a little bit about his? I know he had passed away before you started, but how his role in the conception of the film?
Noah Piugatuk was born in 1900 and passed away in 1996. So his lifetime is sort of a microcosm of the Inuit 20th century. And he was born into a lifestyle that hadn't really changed much in 4,000 years. And passed away in a world that's very similar to the world we're living in now. Our film takes place on a day in 1961 that was a day that that really happened. Zacharias himself was 3 years old at the time his family was living in Piugatuk's camp, and people who were are portrayed in the film are real people that we know and worked with, and who remembered the events that took place. So the film is an experiment in as if it were filmed in reality at the time it happened, when that would not have been possible. And trying to imagine what really happened, what was said, how people really behaved, how certain things could happen that were momentous and also difficult to understand because of their consequences. How could those things happen if they really did happen? And our approach is to get people who are able to act it out as if it really happened. And in that case, we film it as if it were really happening. And that's what you've just seen. I don't know. Am I still here?
That's my the word, the phrase of 2020 is "you're muted." Sorry, I was muted. Norm, there are so many elements of this that are worthy of. There's the level of detail is so rich, and I just wanted to ask you about the set design and the costumes, which indicate that outside influence have already deeply infiltrated this culture as of 1961.
Well, 1961, they're building the Berlin Wall. That's not that long ago. Zacharias is 63 years old this November, and he was born in a sod house in that space, living on the land in the middle of Baffin Island. So by that time, Inuit were among the very last people colonized in North America. And in this particular region, for reasons of geography and accidental history, were among the very last people to be moved off of their traditional land base and lifestyle. Piugatuk would have met the missionaries and priests in the 1920s. We made a film called The Journals of Knut Rasmussen that documents how Inuit of this particular region converted to Christianity in the 1920s. Piugatuk would have lived through knowing about the Second World War, when priests with shortwave radios were in the Arctic and introducing people to the idea that the world was at war, to a culture where there was no word for war, where the idea of people killing strangers, large numbers, is a form of insanity, and not really imaginable. But by the 1950s, the Cold War, which took place over the Arctic as much as anywhere, with American Canadian air bases built along the DEW line, facing off against Soviet nuclear bombers with American nuclear bombers. These were flying over Piugatuk's homeland. And Inuit were certainly aware that these things were happening. And the decision to try and move Inuit out of their land-based lifestyle, which was practical and self-sufficient for 4 millennia in this region, was probably influenced by the U.S. military and the need to control security over the Arctic in the context of the Cold War. So Piugatuk would have been a relatively sophisticated person about dealing with outside influences and also resisting those outside influences. And we tried to make a film that imagined his level of awareness in both recognition of the people he was dealing with and the consequences of what he was facing.
You were the cinematographer on this too, and I wanted to say, the way that you film the actor playing Noah is so brilliant. We spend so much time just looking at him, and I'm wondering if it would be okay for us to play a quick clip that is a good example of that, and we could maybe talk about what you were thinking when you were shooting that. Would that be
Sure.
it? Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Stand by. We're going to give this a shot. Fingers crossed on the technology.
If the family moves there, you said there's heat, monthly money, and school. What is the grandkids gonna do there?
With school, they're educated to work, study for getting work, so they can earn their own money for their own living, so they can be free to choose what they want to do.
Davunga during no kwata idinere lotitlu kana yak tak lotitlu nang miniru kina yero paglotiru ang iklipat nang manipiyon na sinama ko.
Kino yak takatero ko tigli kino yak kisumatong nang man. Kano you think kino yak?
It's an incredible scene, Norm, and in part, I mean, the way you shot it is just beautiful. And I just feel like as we watch that shot, we see a man who's holding the entirety of the past and the entirety of the future, all, which is in rapid transition all at once. That's the way I read that shot. Can you talk a little bit about how you set up that shot, how you talk to the actor, what went into making that beautiful shot? And of course, there's 80 minutes, on either side of that shot that are also as impressive.
The thing about Inuit is they have a culture that values very highly just paying attention, looking at things, not so much talking, explaining, but watching, learning from watching, really experiencing being in the world through what you could call close observation. And we've developed a video technique that actually suits this particular technology very well, but also mirrors that Inuit value or Inuit approach to intelligence, which is another translation of the word isuma, which is you just watch. You watch someone or you watch someone do something, and if you watch closely and carefully enough, you will understand with intelligence or isuma what's happening in front of you in this experience of your life. And if you've seen our earlier films, you know that they're all filmed that way. Zacharias and I were video makers, not filmmakers. We're two of the oldest video makers walking on the planet right now. And we brought a video sensibility to our practice, which through convergence has converged film and video into the same technology, but it's a different perspective. And video was much more of a time-based medium. You watch something, you're not clicking off the seconds in your mind like the cash register of a film shoot. So just started using video to watch people be themselves and do real things. And our actors have learned to be real, be themselves, or their ancestors, which is often the people they're playing. Apiata Kotiak is a nephew of Noah Pugatuk, and I think was, as an actor, he's channeling someone who he knew and spent a lot of time with, and would have understood a lot of how he felt and how he thought. So Apiat is both acting and not acting. And of course, in order to do a scene like that, where sometimes we're letting the camera run for 20 or 30 minutes without a break, without a cut, our people are improvising a lot of what they're saying. You know, there's a script, they know what the general idea of the film is, but they're not reciting scripted lines. They're improvising the thoughts and the feelings that they're experiencing from feeling like they're in that situation, and they're doing it interactively with Kim Bodnia, who's a professional world-class actor, but who also is able to work like that. And we worked with Kim before in the Journals of Knut Rasmussen. So technique is not just a camera technique. It's a conceptual technique about how to tell visual stories.
Can you talk a little bit about the translation elements of this? You know, there's the distance between the English and the Inuit languages can be so far apart, and there's obviously some game playing going on too. There's a line that is the original line is, "He's just happy on the outside because he's a white man," and the translation of that is "thank you." And so the interpreter, which I projected upon the filmmaking team too. The filmmaking team are their own form of interpreters. The interpreter is trying to communicate, is trying to keep communications going in a productive way, is also a little bit of maybe a jester or a coyote figure. I wasn't exactly sure what to make of it all.
You know, the history in the New World of colonization of indigenous people has had thousands of encounters similar to the 111 minutes of our film, where the challenge of cross-lingual communication has a tremendous impact on history, and both on the life and death of how people at the time, and the entire record of consequences of what took place. You could say that a lot of the problems that you're in Santa Fe, New Mexico. A lot of the problems the United States is experiencing right now in dealing with its indigenous people, and certainly in Canada, dealing with Canadian indigenous people, is triggered by the failure to communicate and the difficulty of translation. And so one thing we tried to do is recognize what would these events, these thousands of, somebody Crazy Horse, and tried to communicate with Crazy Horse why they should come into the Fort Robinson Reservation in Nebraska. And what was that conversation really like? Because it ended up with Crazy Horse being killed. And Piugatuk is experiencing something that is a major thread of the history of the New World. And we are trying to represent that in all of its different aspects. And, one of those aspects is that everybody in these conversations is extremely intelligent. There are not people who are necessarily smarter and dumber than anybody else because they don't understand the other's language. That they have very high levels of intelligence and awareness. And the translators are in almost impossible situations because they're sometimes being asked to translate things that you can't possibly say to the person you're being translated for. That you can't, when somebody says this guy is an idiot, the translator just knows that you can't say that. So he'll say thank you. And when the government agent says we're going to come and take your children away, or says, tell him again, the translator knows you can't speak to a respected, intelligent elder and insist and tell him over and over again what he has to do. You can't say that. So, I think we became very aware, and they're making it up. I mean, the two adversaries are improvising their dialogue over, let's say, 30 minutes at a time of running camera.
Right.
And our translator is translating whatever they're saying because this isn't scripted. So his role is as improvised and real as the role that Piugatuk is playing and the role that the boss is playing as a government agent. And I'm assuming that there have been hundreds or thousands of these conversations throughout the last 500 years, from Australia, throughout South America, wherever.
Yeah, I imagine there was just because as you're describing this, there were some moments where outtakes where the cast must have just cracked up out of some sort of interpretation that the interpreter made. There must have been some ones that were so wildly off the mark. Were there moments like that where, the absurdity of it all overtook the actors?
No, the absurdity for the actors while we're filming is really part of the reality. So when sometimes people laugh in the scenes because they know that something that's being said is funny. What's interesting is when the film is seen by an Inuit audience where people are really bilingual, there is a lot of laughter throughout the whole film because, in a strange kind of way, people realize how absurd so much of what they're seeing really is. But Inuit get the jokes that are delayed by subtitling, whereas Inuit get them in real time. And so there is a lot of laughter about how the gap between what people are saying and what people are understanding, but that gap has consequences.
I know it's getting late for you there. I'm not going to keep you too much longer, and I really appreciate it. This is so rich for those of us who've seen the film. It's just so rich to hear this, this explained to us and expanded for us. I want to praise on a storytelling level, because I know you and Zach wrote the screenplay, the form of the film, and I'm not doing that just as a film critic, film nerd type, but the form of the film, which is, it's one day in the life, and it starts in this enclosed space, and it ends in this enclosed space. You've got travel in between. It's this kind of triangle, a rise and a fall. It's very elegant. I think the genius of the film to me is that structure contains this story, but we know that right outside of that structure and right outside of the story is a really dire history. And when we see Noah thinking about his options, we understand that this is, we understand what happened before and what happens after, and we understand when his wife coughs, we understand that it's tuberculosis, and that's another threat. And can you talk a little bit about that? I think I'm just, there's not a question in that, but maybe you'll have a response to it, because I really was thinking all day about how.
Well, Jason, you're thinking what we were thinking, and what we were thinking before we made the film, when we thought about how we could recreate in a way that felt absolutely grounded and real. A single day in which so much previous and consequential aftermath flows through what is just another day in a person's life. So it was, it was a video experiment, or an experiment using video the way some writers have experimented with representing the complexity of time through a particular moment in time. And the thing about video or filmmaking, but particularly electronic filmmaking, is that you can layer a sense of really seeing something happen in the time that it really took to happen. And we're trying to give people the experience of what it would have been like to have been along on that day with those people, and start out in the morning and end up in the evening, and what you would be thinking about at the end from what you see they seem to be thinking about at the end.
Well, you accomplished that, and so much more than that. I mean, it's really, it's a really significant achievement in storytelling, as a lot of your films are. And I can't let you go quite yet, because I need to just celebrate a little bit more.
Okay, I'm not in a rush.
So I am going to just shift gears for a second into your bigger project, which is Isuma TV. And I went and made a slideshow just because I'm a nerd. And it has a few things that I just wanted to share with people. Quotes from members of the community whose your work has impacted. And I just want to say, as people read this quote, that your website and network now hosts nearly 8,000 pieces of indigenous produced materials, many of which you and Zach and your team and your community have produced over the course of 35 years. There is, the kind of, grand feature projects. I think you've made 5 of them now. There are recordings of community meetings. There are videos of the skinning of a polar bear. There are kind of thrillers. There's, short fictions, works made by youth. And if you guys have all had a chance to read that quote, which is so beautiful, you can't see this well, but these are the indigenous languages included in the archive at Isuma TV. I think it is 70 different languages from every continent. It's incredible. And of course, last year was the Year of Indigenous Languages. So we're grateful for that. This is a repository for so much wisdom and knowledge. And then another quote from a community member. And that really seems, and I'm speaking from an outsider and a fan, but that really seems to sum up what your organization has done. I also have to say that Isuma TV was one of the first to start talking about global climate change. We played a film at one of our festivals, was one of the first made. And of course, the people there are on the front line of global climate change. There has been work on using indigenous voice and digital networks to protect human rights and to have a community voice. There's all these things that are going on in addition to making absolutely brilliant feature films. So I just wanted to say thank you for your years and years of work and commitment. I wish Zach was here for us to congratulate him as well, but hopefully you'll share that with him too.
I will, and thank you, Jason. And I just want to say something. Zach was out on a film shoot for the last 2 weeks that they had quite a lot of bad weather and very difficult time getting back. And he did just get back yesterday, and they've been all quite exhausted. They left 2 boats behind. So I'm not surprised that he wasn't really able to join us tonight, but he heard of this.
Yeah, good. Thank you. We didn't get a chance for questions from the audience, but again, it's a little bit late on in the Atlantic time zone. It's almost 10 o'clock there. Kimberly, thank you so much for SWAIA being a part of this. And
Appreciate
Norm, sorry, go ahead.
No, I really appreciate that, and love the question and answering, because definitely from my perspective, even from the beginning to the end, there was like some profound things that from my perspective as a woman from indigenous tribes, it was very relatable to even our history, right? And so it was very impactful, and I appreciate the invitation, Jason, to bring that to our audience and then to allow us to just ponder on it. So thank you.
I thank you, Kimberly. And next week, we've got Gary Farmer talking about Dead Man, which is incredible. So please sign up for that.
Yes.
I have put into the chat 2 links. One is to Isuma TV. One is to an absolutely incredible interactive feature that Isuma has made in conjunction with the feature film. It has the translation of a map that Zach's father used. And it travels across the territory with stories from Zach and from Noah in their voices over time. It's incredible. I mean, I want to keep Norm on this call to talk about all the different formal elements of this film. But the fact that this film ended with that documentary footage takes us into an entirely different realm of storytelling. That realm is expanded on this interactive feature. So I would really encourage everyone who loved the film, which is all of us, to spend some time with that. It really was, it's really quite, I cried a couple times listening to that today. So thank you for all that you do, Norm. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you for all your kind words. Thank you, Kimberly.
Yes.
Thank you for your kind words.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody who watches the film.
Yeah, and we'll see you all next Tuesday with another program with SWAIA and the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. Thanks to everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.